all the gamers in the room, right? You know, when you're in the zone, right, or whatever you do, you're playing music, or whatever you're doing, you want to be in the flow, right? You want to be distracted by things. And this is the kind of thinking for us, is how can we make the experience for you to be in this flow, so you focus on your questions rather than what menu was it, what calculation, where do I go? You know, you don't want to worry about any of that. All right, so let's get started here. So I did nothing to this data, I just brought it in. And quick sanity check, how big is this data set? 10,500 rows of data, tiny, tiny data set, right? It spans over a period of 1 year, April 2014 to April 2015, yeah? And this just counts how many events of your phone talking to the cell tower. Are you surfing the web? Are you talking on the phone? Are you sending a message? Right? Not the message itself, just the fact that you're doing it. Changing perspective, you notice there's some gaps in your data, right? Just visually, again, it would be very hard to tell if you were just looking at numbers. We're going to explore this later, because sometimes missing data is more interesting. So, we have information about the location of the cell tower, so 3 states. And if we count, 7,500 out of the 10,000 events are happening in New South Wales. So that's where he spends most of his time. Now I've got a whole lot of questions. I want to know where this guy lives, where he works, and it's a perfect thing for government people to talk about. Not because of all the government people, but you know, it's know your citizens better. Where they party, where they go on holiday, you know, who they talking to on the phone late at night. So let's see what we can find. So in addition to the state information, we have latitude and longitude of every cell tower. So we can just bring those in. And again, they span across the 3 states. We know New South Wales, where we want to focus, because that's where most of those data points were. And of course, here are all the cell towers. Now, I don't need to give you a geography lesson, right? Sydney Harbour, Airport, Northern Beaches up there. The size of the dot tells you how many interactions your phone and the cell tower, the communication between the two. I'll throw this on color so it's easier for you guys to see. Anyone colorblind in the room, we'll make it orange and blue. Never use red and green because no one can see them. Pretty like Christmas, right? Don't just like one gray color. So this is a map. Bubbles tell you where there's something going on. Interesting, but not that useful by itself, right? It's kind of there. I need the timeline. I need to know day of the week maybe. So we can then work out what is he doing or where is he on Mondays versus Sundays and so on. So here's Monday to Sunday, and that's just, you know, the different constant. But that's still not enough. Interesting, not very useful. I need more detail. I need hours of the day so I can tell where is he when he's awake or asleep, right? So we'll just do it by hour. And the magic really happens when we start combining these together, right? And so, well, I'll have to cross-reference all of these. So we'll throw in the map. We'll throw in the day of the week. We'll throw in the hour of the day. I'll just link them up quickly so we can cross-reference in any direction, right? Now you might be thinking, I mean, we're just running like tons of SQL under the covers, right? As we dragging all these things around. So now, if we go and select city centre, so sort of Sydney CBD, notice Monday to Friday lights up, right? That's where it works, and it works for the ABC. So it's not there on weekends very often. That big blob at the top, I mean, you're probably guessing that's where he lives, so we just confirm that. He's there every day, more on weekends, and he sleeps there as well, right? So clearly that's where he lives. And then we got Manly Beach, right? Let's select that. Well, you can see he goes up to Manly on Saturday night, and he goes parties in Manly, right? Doesn't stay up too late. I always say he's a good pickup artist because he gets home pretty early, right? Not in the data, but again, you know, we can always tell stories. Now, that missing data you saw at the beginning, let's work out what happened. So you see how I'm just looking at that piece, and I want to know what happened when he disappeared, right? And everything else changes. Well, look, he's at the airport on that day. And he was there on the Monday, the 9th of February, arrived at the airport at 9 o'clock in the morning, left at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, so clearly international flight. And then let's see the point that he came back. And again, he's at the airport. And he came back on Tuesday, 3rd of March, arrived at 7 a.m., nothing to declare, out through customs by 8 o'clock, and then recovering from jet lag in his house for the rest of the day, right? Now, we could, of course, marry this with other data to see what flights he was on and so on. Now we also saw data outside of New South Wales, so Tasmania was one. And you can see here, you went to Tassie 1, 2, 3, 4 times that year. If you look at that last piece, Christmas time, right? That's where his family lives, so on. And the final piece here is sort of country Victoria. If you pick that up, he's there on the weekend away. That's the woman the girl that he picked up in Manly because he's not using his phone very much. So I'm going to stop here. Now we could continue on. There's phone numbers in there as well, obfuscated numbers, but you could tell he's calling this number during office hours, during the week, and he's texting this number late at night on the weekends. You could kind of make, and it's just one side of the story, of course, maybe everybody else has a full picture. The reason I'm showing you this is that anybody can do this, right? You don't have to write SQL, you don't have to write any code, you just had some questions and you wanted to know some answers. Clearly, the data needs to be in a form that is usable, and that is the trick, yes? And this is kind of where you guys come in, right? This data is even more important today than ever. In the past, if the data wasn't quite right, you still only had very few people using it, so you say, well, we trust these people, right? These 10 people here, yeah, the data is not quite right, they're not going to make mistakes. They can kind of work out where the boundaries are. But now we're opening this up to everyone, and those people don't have that deep understanding, so the data needs to be much cleaner, much more usable. It needs to be such that we, explains itself, and we don't make those mistakes as much. All right. So, if we want to bring more people on this journey, and have this true data culture in organization where it is across everyone, this might still be too hard, yes? I always kind of think it's that climbing stairs, they were looking for escalators or elevators, right, to get up there. So what would be an easier way to do this? Well, easier way would be to bring a more natural interface for them. And obviously Google and natural languages is a way to go. So I've got an example here for you of, again, our thinking along these lines. And many others are doing this, because they know that suddenly this is going to get more people interested in data. So we're looking at a very simple data set around wines. There's some profiling on it, so you can kind of see what's in it, and it's got prices and points and varieties and vintage and that kind of stuff. But then if we can just ask a plain English question, like, what are the most expensive wines over the last 10 years? Now, when humans talk to other humans, and we're usually quite ambiguous when we talk to each other, we can always clarify by asking more questions or try and figure out what you mean and so on. It's all in the context of what you're talking about. So over here, when we look at the sentence that, well, most expensive, well, you're probably talking about money. That usually relates to money, so we got prices. Wines, well, there is no wines here, but each of these could have other synonyms there, right? So title is wine, bottle, whatever other ways that we would describe the same thing. And over the last 10 years, well, that sounds like time, because we've got fields and things that are related to dates and time. We understand the hierarchy of time. We know exactly what 10 years means. We can filter by minutes. And we can start giving you suggestions. And as more people ask these questions, we can learn from them. So they keep banging on about this wine thing, right? So I think this is what they mean, and we can start putting them to use. And of course, then you just select the best one. Usually, probably should be the one at the top, and the rest is just a visual pop-up that's most appropriate to the kind of question that you ask. And we can continue asking further questions, right? Spelling things incorrectly, which is the easiest thing to fix, right? And even ask things like, what about New Zealand? We understand the metadata, we of course understand the data, there's a catalog underneath all of this stuff, so we can make some decisions here and just start filtering it by. Now, I'm not saying that this is going to replace some of the questioning we saw earlier, but I think it is going to introduce it to many more people out there. And again, the data needs to be in a really, really good shape for this to work, right? If the data is a mess, it will be quite tricky to use it. Okay. So, up to this point, we still kind of relied on the human to ask all the questions. And we still believe, you know, at Tableau at least, that humans still at the steering wheel. The whole AI thing is clearly going to change the world. For now, I think we're looking at it more as an augmented intelligence than artificial intelligence, right? And whoever can figure out the interface between the human and the machine is going to kind of succeed here. I don't know how many of you read the Gary Kasparov book, and he talked about how, you know, today there is no human that can beat a computer in chess, right? By miles. But there is no computer that can beat a computer-human combination today, right? It's that kind of interface that is going to succeed. Anyway, I'm going to show you another example where we thinking of, well, let's apply some, let's help the user in maybe pointing them in the right direction, or giving them some options of what they should be maybe asking. This is a typical data set that if you're a data scientist, you probably used it many times, the Titanic data set, right? It has all the passengers on it, ages, ticket prices, gender, all that kind of stuff, and then you know who survived and who didn't. Most people use this for a little machine learning project or something. So if we look at the passengers on the ship by gender, and then we know who survived and who didn't, so the blue color is people that survived, orange color is the ones that did not survive. So there were probably twice as many men as women on that boat. That 81, I'm interested to know why there were these 81 women that did not survive that trip. Now, I could of course go in and do what I've done earlier and say, well, is it because of the age? Is it because of traveling alone? Is it a ticket? Is it whatever? I could answer all those questions myself. It would take a while. But why not use, you know, just some advanced statistics to do this for us and simply say, well, can you explain that 81 to me? And all we're doing is basically looking at all of the dimensions and seeing what's driving this number. And so, well, it seems to be a ticket class. So we see three classes of tickets. Most expensive is 1, cheapest is 3. The gray box, or gray bar, is the distribution of all the passengers across those classes. Blue bar is just for the 81 people, right? So you can see it's very disproportional to the other one. And it's people in cheap tickets under the water level, you know, couldn't get out in time and so on. Right. So, you know, again, the visuals kind of give you a much better indicator. Well, let's change this very quickly. And maybe look at it by age. A whole lot of null ages, so we're going to get rid of those. So I'm interested in the 224 people that died between sort of age 20 and 30. You know, what's driving that number down? And it could be more than one reason, right? So it comes back with 3 reasons, actually. So gender is one, kind of knew that. Ticket class is the other, kind of already explored that. And the third one down here, speaking too fast for my video, right? And the third one is whether they traveled alone or had spouses or kids with them. And you can see these were usually men, traveled alone, and so on. And this might be the point, I want to explore this more. And this is where you switch into kind of the manual mode now and start asking more questions. Now, of course, there's nothing I told you here that you didn't already know. It's a really very simplistic example. But imagine this was millions of rows of data, and it was hundreds of dimensions, right? And there's an outlier in a scatter plot, and you want to know why is this outlier here? What's driving that? You know, you can go and start dragging things around and asking these questions yourself, or let systems like this and others, right, try and work this out for you. So again, lowering that barrier for people to ask questions, and maybe, you know, without writing too much code. And the third one is around data literacy. In fact, I had a whole talk on data literacy alone because there was just so much material there. And so data literacy, I think there's a parallel here with literacy. In the same way that literacy has basically changed the world over the last 100 years, and it's a way to get information out of written word. Data literacy, I think, is probably one of the most important business skills that everyone should skill up on. Because deriving information from data, but even more importantly, it's about arguing with that data. Having an intelligent conversation around data. And I know every time I say this, I don't know, somehow Trump just goes in my head. He's just messed it all up for us because there is no data. It's all just made up stuff. So, politically correct in Canberra today. So, that needs to be the conversation starter. But if people are not on the same level or they are too far apart, those conversations will simply not. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I've been talking to a lot of data scientists, and they are struggling to talk to IT people and talk to business people. They're doing some clever things, difficult things, but then they have to dumb it down so much when they need to explain it that it loses its magic, right? So entire organizations need to lift their game in terms of data literacy. So when you think about data literacy on the surface, it's like, well, I just need to understand charts. And that's true, but there's way more to this than just looking at other people's charts. It's you creating content as well, or you having that critical view on some of that, asking questions, what's actually here, and how was it calculated, and should I trust it, and so on. What's the source of all of this? That's the kind of stuff we should be asking. I've got one example, there's tons of these, but I just brought one to illustrate that these are sort of more subtle things than sometimes that goes obvious. So we're looking at some life expectancy in Sweden since 1751. Again, I picked Sweden because we can go all the way back to 1751. And if you look at this curve, a few things pop out here. Firstly, there's a whole bunch of people died in some probably disease times that couldn't be cured in those days. Obviously, medical science is doing pretty well. The curve is pretty smooth now. But anyway, I digress. What I want to talk about is that 38.4 years old was the average life expectancy in 1751. What does that mean? Does that mean that we would all be dead by the time we turn 40? And surprising, I know, you're all shaking your head because that's just a stupid thing to say. But you would hear this on the radio. You would hear this, you would see this on television. People would say, oh, you wouldn't even make it to your 40th. I mean, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and a guy got corrected, saying, no, that's not quite true. Because that doesn't mean that everyone's dead, because that's from age 0, from birth, right? If you made it to your first birthday, this would have increased by almost 10 years. First birthday, 10th birthday, almost 20 years more. So people still live to 50, 60, probably to 100 for all we know. Not as many as today, I guess. But they didn't all drop dead at the age of 40. And of course, this is just pure, simple stats at work here, right? If you take it from birth, mortality rate was extremely high for newborns and little kids, and they were just dying at these numbers that are simply skewing the average down to this value, right? So the question here isn't so much about, do I know how to calculate a median or a mean? I'm sure everyone can do that. It is more about what is the side effect here, or what is the reason for using one or the other. So, with a mean is exactly what happened here, is to make things seem better or worse. Yeah, because it was much worse than it really was. Or you can hide some inequalities. Politicians love these things. They use it to their advantage. And again, it should be our job to then ask the questions like, how did you calculate this? What assumptions did you make? But how many people ask those questions? They don't, in many cases. So this is just one of many, and there's this whole lot of fun ones that I'm sure many of you are probably familiar with. But we need to not only educate the workforce in using there's a lot of education around tools and technologies and so on. There should be education about how to think like an analyst. Even a little bit of programming sometimes I think is such a beneficial thing for everyone to know, not because they're going to become a coder and start making apps on the App Store. That's not what it's about. But they'll appreciate what it is and how it fits together. right? And it can only be so I said I was going to sell you Tableau today. Well, I only got one slide. Not to sell you Tableau, but just to bring it home in a sense that even though we're a technology company and we sell software, the entire conversation and most of the conversations we're having with our customers and prospects is about people. How are we going to change the way we use data? And that should be the first thing you do. You have a strategy there of how to do this, and then you go and pick some technology that will allow you to do this. Not the other way around. Because we see many people buy Tableau, but they use it like it's 1999. You know, let's just create a report factory and do what we always do. And it's like, I actually feel bad. You know, it's like, you know, I'm ripping you off here a little bit because you're just not using the tool to its full potential. And all we need to change is the way you're going to think about data. So of course, all the building blocks are there for us, right? We don't care what cloud platform you're on or on-premise. We don't care how you consume the stuff. We don't care if your data is dirty, we can fix that. You know, there's a whole governance thing. There's obviously analytics, that's the bread and butter for what we do. There's a whole collaboration stuff. There's even APIs for you to plug in things that we might not have, right? But you got to have a strategy in place to see if I'm going to just deliver this to, you know, the entire company. I want them to, you know, get value out of data, and that's just the technology that will enable you to do this. But there is one thing you can take home. You have to go to a website. I don't have it here to give you, but we got something like 85,000 customers around the world, and we looked at these customers and we saw obviously the good, the bad, and the ugly way of thinking about data, deploying data solutions, and so on. And we thought, could we not maybe try and find the success stories here and see what they're doing? What is making them different from the others? So we created this document called the Blueprint. It's not really, it's not Tableau specific at all, right? It's actually technology agnostic, almost. And it's on our website, so you know, if you want to sort of see our point of view on this and you know, use this yourself. And it kind of splits into these three areas. One is around deployment, but not just the technical pieces, right? It's okay, so you deployed it, we need to measure how good is this, you know, how is it performing, you know, where are the bottlenecks and so on. Education, kind of the data literacy piece we talked about a little bit, right? We need to find, and we go more, this is very practical, so there'll be initiatives in here to say we need to run a little events or something that people can share ideas, and this is kind of comes to this community piece as well. Because we found that the most successful companies around data have created a community of people that get together on a regular basis. And this is from business, from IT, they kind of get together, go away. These kind of virtual concepts, right? And they're sharing ideas and solving problems and so on. And if that's not there, it's very difficult for this to happen. And of course, this has to come all the way from the top. There is no support from the leadership team. That would be usually dead on arrival, I think. Anyway, this is, I leave you with this. You can go to the website, you can type in Blueprint, 180 pages of some riveting reading, right? But I'm sure you'll find some interesting things in there. And that kind of brings me to the end of my talk. Did I go way over time? No?
No, it's perfect. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
I'm sure there'll be a few questions.
No, cool. Yeah.
We got time for a couple of questions up the back?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of the points you made there in terms of the data sharing and the curiosity and then obviously the literacy.
Yeah.
Underpinning that obviously needs to be some kind of ethical framework, because as literacy increases and people get access to more richer and richer data sets, then legislation is probably not going to keep pace with that, so the legal aspects of it probably aren't going to be there around how you actually, what you can do with data. How do you see that fitting in?
So we, I mean, that's like a minefield there. But what we see some companies do is when you start as a fresh employee, I mean, what usually happens, they tell you how to log into your email, you know, how to log in your leave form and so on, and a few other things, and that's it. But some of the companies are including the data element at that point, right? So it's a conversation, look, this is the data that's available. This is the responsibility with the data that you would have. Right? So when they start, it's no longer, where do I find it? Am I allowed to? Am I not allowed to? Who can I talk to you about it? No. They already know that framework, right? And it's now just working within that. So I've seen some companies address it right at the beginning, and of course that has to be propagated to the rest of the employees. And and I can give you examples like within Tableau, that conversation is regularly circled through.
It just jumped out when you had that example of the call data.
Yeah.
It really, yes, you can access that in your telco, and you could probably track anybody you want, but should you?
Yeah.
And I guess that's what we don't see a lot of, is that, yes, we've got access to data. Most organisations are still building their capability and the richness of the data assets they have, but at a point, the balance will tip and they'll have access to this, and there probably is that gap around should they be accessing some of that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, one way is to lock it up, yes.
Yeah. It's getting that right, because there are going to be people that need it. And do you see it, like you mentioned, that there are some organisations looking at it, but how broad is that in your experience?
It's not that broad, no. No. I mean, we do talk about it a lot, that they should be doing that. I mean, then on the other hand, you've got Facebooks, and it's probably like, look, knock yourself out, right?
Yeah.
See what you can find, and let us know, right?
Another question? All right.
And and just one other point on that, because I was just thinking, well, maybe it's also the end consumers and users of data that are to blame sometimes, because I mean, take the Alexa, take the Google Home thing. I mean, let's think about this. You basically have brought in a stranger and put him in the middle of your house, and they listen to everything you say. Not when you say Alexa, all the other time. It's like, has anybody ever thought this through? That there is a guy or a girl sitting in your living room, and in your bedroom probably too. No, I haven't thought about it. No, right? So now those are the people. Then you have they go to work and you say, you know what? We can't give you this date. It's like, there's a bit of a disconnect here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the education, and I'm like a big proponent of a lot of these people. My friends hate me because they argue such as, why would, it's a convenience thing. I love the convenience, I have arguments with like my brother. He would say, I'm a smart internet user. So, I don't fall for any of the advertising and stuff, I get best deals. And I'll say, you don't realize that if I go and book a flight to Melbourne tomorrow, and then you go and book a flight to Melbourne tomorrow, yours will be twice the price potentially, right? That's the best deal you're gonna get, because they know, I know he can pay, As for me, it'll be a different thing. So we think we're getting the best experience, but we're not. And those conversations, it's almost like we need to educate people on the everyday living, and that hopefully also translates into what we do.
And once they're informed, they can then make that decision for themselves as whether they're willing to give up that information or they don't.
So I fed my Alexa to the dog. In fact, there's a blog post I wrote on why I killed Alexa. If you're interested in knowing. There was actually a story that was just too weird. It was too weird that it would be a chance that it happened. I in fact got a text message from Amazon trying to sell me something that was so unique. They never texted me in my life. Anyway, I digress. But that's like a topic that we could explore for hours.
Yes.
So thank you.
Thank you, Matt. I just say, what I enjoy